Okay, so first off, I want to say great job on the introduction. I'm honored to be here speaking on behalf of this amazing cohort of individuals. When I was nominated for this speech, I spent my time researching inspirational quotes, proverbs, and endless YouTube videos of successful people saying successful things, all in hopes of creating the most outstanding 10 minutes that anyone here has ever experienced. Only after weeks of preparation, I experienced an epiphany. A truly great speech comes from the heart, and authenticity means more than some fancy words. So I decided that I'd take this speech and throw it away. I then experienced an even bigger epiphany, that I didn't want to sound like a ranting fool in front of all of my friends and family, so I brought this backup speech. Amongst the 28 of us are intelligent, dedicated, and compassionate people who have traveled everywhere from our backyards to across the country to be here. Since day one, we bonded and created an environment to break all that physical therapy school had in store for us. One of the foundations of fortitude that kept our class strong was our ability to applaud. After literally anything. It started as It started as a gesture after presentations were given, and soon became more and more outlandish, odd, and borderline inappropriate. It got to a point where we would applaud for anything. We would break out into uncontrolled clapping every time John Howard would walk from the front of the room to his chair while maintaining a handstand. Or anytime Glenda would spill her coffee all over it. And of course, anytime Tyler would make it to the correct classroom at the correct time with his laptop and wallet. So, now that we actually have an excuse to clap, I want to share our tradition with everyone here. First, I would like to applaud for our faculty and staff for getting us to this day. Second, I want to applaud for all of our family and friends for all of the support you have given us, and for picking up the phone when all we wanted to do was complain and convince you about how poorly our semester was going. And lastly, I want to applaud for the 28 of us because we finally made it. So I would like to share with everyone here 3 lessons that I learned in physical therapy school that have nothing to do with physical therapy. And now that I have the title doctor, I feel compelled to teach. So, lesson 1, put down the magnifying glass. In our first spring semester, we took a class called pathophysiology. This was a challenging course, and being nestled in a semester of 7 other classes, finding time to study was daunting. When it came time to take our final exam, our professor recognized the immense amount of material that we had covered that semester and allowed us to bring in a cheat sheet. The rules were simple. We were allowed 1 page, front and back. Being the ambitious bunch that we were, we collaborated all of our study guides and created a 16-page cheat sheet. We then shrunk it down to 4.5 so that all of that knowledge would be fair game. This gave rise to a problem. I mean, have any of you tried to read a paper with 4.5? Completely ridiculous and unrealistic. So, using our doctoral brains, we decided to go to Walmart the night before and raid their magnifying glass section. We took the exam. pen, paper, and magnifying glass in hand. And about 1 hour into it, I had to take a break due to magnifying-induced vertigo. I looked up and realized what I was actually looking at. Everybody was hunched over their exams with their best Sherlock Holmes impressions, struggling to search for what was originally 16 pages just for that one answer. It was hilarious. After getting a good laugh in, I learned my first lesson. Sometimes we find ourselves in difficult situations and need to put the magnifying glass down to appreciate what's actually in front of us. Sometimes the harder we look at something, we just end up with a headache and even more unsure about how to find the answer. This lesson was fortified when I went off onto clinical education. I was tempted to put the magnifying glass on some of my patients, especially those who really challenged me or presented with complex cases. Rather than find more solutions, I found more problems, which made me lose sight of the human being sitting in front of me, who might also be going through a difficult experience. So by putting down the magnifying glass, I was able to see the forest for the trees and feel more connected to my situation, my classmates, my patients. Lesson 2. Thank you. Lesson 2, do it for the people. I learned this lesson while we were taking yet another one of our very difficult courses, neuroanatomy. Now, I know my classmates are sitting here remembering a time in neuro class when I learned a different lesson about how a Q-tip can not only damage your ears, but also your pride. But this lesson came later on that semester. Everyone had their own study groups and methods, and I was lucky enough to study with Alex Dean. For those of you who haven't had the pleasure to meet Alex yet, he's the type of person who is more concerned with my ability to succeed in the class than his own. In addition, he represents our program well, and he serves as the Vice President of the American Physical Therapy Association Student Assembly. Woo! Yeah. We had established a library ritual. We'd meet on the weekends, we would reserve a study room for about 8 hours, and then we'd proceed to accomplish only about 4 out of the 10 things we set out to do. As test day was approaching and anxieties and stress was increasing, it was easy to get caught up on all the details. All the information I had yet to study, complain about the sleep deprivation we were experiencing, and brag about the 5th cup of coffee I was starting that day. We discovered that the most powerful way to cope with the stress of exams was not to study harder, but to stop and take 20 minutes to remind ourselves about our why. Nietzsche put it best when he wrote that he who has a why to live for can bear almost any how. In PT school, it was very easy to get caught up on all of the hows. How will I pass this exam? How will I get all these assignments done? And of course, how is it that Sam Kushner can drink 3 Monster Energies in one sitting and not have a heart attack? Instead, we began to remind ourselves of why we set out to become physical therapists, and would imagine being PTs, reflecting on the countless people that we will one day be able to help. By refocusing, my obstacle became my way, and all of the stress and anxiety would dissolve. I began to apply this lesson to the rest of my time in physical therapy school, and when things began to feel out of hand, I would stop to take a second, step back, and remind myself, do it for the people. The last lesson I have for you today is become a bamboo tree. I'd like to share with you all the story of how a Chinese bamboo tree grows, which I've learned from a motivational speaker, Les Brown. It is said that the Chinese bamboo tree begins as a small seed. The seed has to be planted in soil and watered and fertilized every day for 5 years before it sprouts. If at any time the watering or fertilization process is stopped, the Chinese bamboo tree will die in the ground. But in that 5th year, the Chinese bamboo tree finally breaks through the ground, and in 6 weeks, it grows nearly 90 feet tall. Now, the question is, did it grow 90 feet in 6 weeks or 5 years? The answer is obvious. It took 5 years. 5 years of attention and commitment every day to make it happen. I think this story perfectly demonstrates the level of commitment that our class has put into the process of becoming a physical therapist. The lesson I learned over the past week while reconnecting with my classmates is that we all came here 3 years ago as seedlings. We knew what we wanted to become and needed the last 3 years of watering to transform into the bamboo tree doctors of physical therapy you see here today. Oftentimes, the watering of my bamboo seed was very difficult. I would contemplate taking some time off, or maybe even ditching the seed altogether. It was in those moments that the ones around me would help me find the strength to get back out there and lift up the watering can. Or remind me of how amazing it is going to be to become a physical therapist. Additionally, reflecting on all of my incoming student debt would be sure to add some Miracle-Gro to the mix. As a class, we helped each other out through this entire process. Whether it was a fun Hawaiian shirt Friday or a difficult day full of practical exams, we always carried with us a little extra water for someone else's seed to become a bamboo tree. So in conclusion, I spent the last 3 years laughing, crying, and learning with these amazing group of people. Physical therapy school has taught me to put down the magnifying glass I have on some of life's problems to be able to see the beauty of what's actually sitting in front of me. On a side note, part 2 of that lesson was, next time try to fit more on that sheet with a 3.5. I do not remember doing well on that test at all. I learned that some seeds take longer than we want to begin to sprout, but with dedication, commitment, and a ton of coffee, they eventually turn into something that we never imagined possible. And although the view is beautiful from up here, I challenge my classmates to continue to grow higher and higher and help others realize their potential to become their own bamboo trees. By becoming committed to challenging ourselves each and every day, we can turn ourselves and our obstacles into the very path and show up to work as the best version that we can. If we remember to take time to stop, reflect, and remind ourselves about our whys and not our hows, I feel that we will all have faith and we will be able to go on and share our passions with the world and be lucky enough to call work the very thing we love to do. And lastly, I've learned to applaud often. Thank you all, and we made it.